And I never can remember the script. Captions, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, everybody should sign in the chat so that we can be recorded as attending the meeting. Thanks, Brenda, for the reminder. Well, at least I think I did. Try again. Yeah, hopefully it's in there. Hey, Dan, welcome. Okay, shall we try to start the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So, the first thing we need to do is assign a note taker. We need that we would rotate that job. Is someone willing to take notes for today? All you really need to do is register who's present, any motions that are made, and the results of those motions. If you want to do more, that's okay too.
Oh, I will.
Thank you very much, Claire. Okay, let's do announcements and then agenda adjustments. Does anyone have any announcements? I have one. The Eugene City Council will be meeting in a work session to discuss the neighborhood plan on the 21st of February. And I've sent out a message to Terry Harding asking if they have a tentative date for the actual public hearing with joint public hearing with the planning, the county commission. So moving forward, I don't know if I shared with you, the planning commission met and discussed. They specifically discussed whether or not they would support our request to lower C2 maximum height, building maximum height to 54 feet. After much discussion, they voted to suggest yes, but it was a 5-4 vote. They also, I think, unanimously agreed to take River Avenue out of the automobile restrictive conditions, but not along River Road. So that moves forward. And the other one that they discussed, help me, Dan, what was the other one you voted on?
I don't think Dan's in the room. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just so you know, this is going on outside of my house at the moment. Let me flip it around here.
I can't.
There's a giant there's a high-speed chase followed by a I don't know if there's actually an officer involved shooting or not. So a little distracted.
Yeah.
We wrote a letter that will be presented to council from both sides. We thought that was important, that the council hears not just what was the majority, but because it was a close vote, kind of what the counter opinion was from the planning commission, which I thought was a nice addition to something we haven't done before.
Nice.
So what were the two items that you voted on? I remember the C2 height. What was the other one?
It was the carve out, right? So the restrictions.
Okay. But that
so
was unanimous, was it not?
That was unanimous, yeah. The carve out, but then there was also the actual layering on the existing it was an 89 plan or 84 plan.
Yeah.
I'm onto it. I don't have my notes in front of me. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry. I should have remembered. So that moved forward without any concern, didn't it? The keeping of the previous land
That-
use plan?
Yes.
Is all of this supposed to be in the notes?
No,
No, not
Thank you.
necessarily. We
Okay.
can just say I announced that the meeting would be on the 21st.
Okay.
Well, if we remember what the other one was, Dan, let's throw it in, but
February. Okay, February.
yeah, 21st. Okay, Claire made several suggestions to change the agenda.
I have a question that is kind of like an announcement. Are you going to ask other people for announcements? before
Oh,
you go?
yes, thank you, Brenda, I forgot.
There is something happening tomorrow that I got an email that said, is anybody else going to it? I just thought as board members, it seemed like we ought to see if people are going.
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
It's
Is
a
it-
neighborhood summit, that'll be held downtown in the LCC building.
No, it got moved to the Campbell Center.
Oh, that's right, it got moved, thank you.
So we don't need to debrief it, but that's what you're
Oh,
going to.
yeah, that was a faux pas on my part. I just took an agenda item and didn't realize it's premature, but we can certainly talk about it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was a conversation piece. I have other commitments and can't go, but
Understood.
I also didn't think about it till tonight, but Claire, I think when we're doing the newsletter, let's make sure we announce the time of the river celebration next fall so that people can begin to plan around that. Just kind of keep that percolating in front of people.
It really helps me if you can send me a note about that
Okay,
on email. That would be great.
So have you guys already set a date?
Yeah, the Sunday or Saturday after Labor Day.
the second Saturday in September.
In September, okay.
Like
Still
the-
don't want to do it on Sunday?
Yeah, we didn't decide whether it was Sunday or Saturday.
I
And John,
just-
back, did you
Yeah,
mean
Dan.
the building length? Was that the one you were looking for?
No, I recollect that you guys took 2, 4, 3 votes and I couldn't remember what the second one was.
I'd have to go back. I didn't write down the roll call. But I'm just thinking back of building height was one of them, but I thought that the length was also a thing. So I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, no, thank you. Okay, any other announcements? Okay, Dan, I think you have an announcement to make.
I do.
Regarding your domicile.
Oh, yeah. So I needed to move away from RRCO. It was a number of different, just it's loud and just not really great for my family. And so we relocated to the Crescent Village, which is right next to Winco over on Coburg Road. So I still own a business within the River Road area. So I'm still able to be a part of RRCO, but I just don't live on River Road anymore. That's the reason why that I was showing the image from earlier. There was apparently a high-speed chase that you're going to read about in the news when you get off here. But in any case, I didn't want anybody to hear about it from someplace else and then wonder what happened or something. So if anybody who remembers, there was a problem with my downstairs neighbor who had some mental health issues, and she and her partner, when they left, did a lot of damage to their unit, such that it required the demolition of adjacent apartments, including mine, to repair it. So they gave me a very nice kind of relocation package, which I was more than happy to take and go, kind of go elsewhere. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer it. But that's where we're at.
Great.
Wow, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, thanks for continuing to work with us, Dan.
Of course.
Okay, other announcements?
I'm gonna be gone next month from the 10th through the 19th.
Okay. Let me get that in. Okay, let's go to adjustments. Claire had suggested a few. First of all, you asked that we move the discussion of March election prep to number 3 and that we provide more time for it. How much time do you think we need?
20 minutes, I don't know, yeah,
Okay, we'll change that from 15 to 20.
at least.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Okay, that's one. And you had some other questions we can talk about at the time. You're right, debrief is not the right word for a summit. Do we want to discuss the NORC? We can talk about it in that part of it. Can we revisit the board meeting day decision? We can add that as a new item. 10 minutes.
Sure. Unless someone
Okay.
can just succinctly say why we're meeting at the end of the month, right when it's jammed up.
I agree, it's a problematic date. Okay. There needs to be a substantive article in the newsletter about board elections by this Friday. Who is going to do that? We can make that part of the discussion of the meeting, the March meeting logistics, okay?
Okay.
Okay, well, that's now number 3. So we'll move, well, approve consent calendar. I'm sorry, this is my bad, but there's nothing in the consent calendar. I'll bring it all back next month. It's been a month for me. I apologize. Okay, so March election prep. We do have to have a March election. You will see.
Wait. John?
Yes, Brenda.
We're not going to do any minutes. Did anybody take minutes of our last general meeting?
I don't know that they did.
I asked that question as we started and no one answered. So I'm just, if that's a requirement, perhaps you just need to write something that says it was there. Michelle, did you get something down?
No, I didn't, but I will say that, from my experience working at ODOT, and as long as the meeting is recorded and is available to the public, you still meet the criteria for, disclosure. So
We recorded it. I do remember us starting that.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
Yeah.
right. So, there is that option out there. I mean, I used to run Zoom meetings all the time when I worked at ODOT, and I just kept them. So
Who is on the phone? 512?
Is that Dan?
mm-mm.
Because his screen share looked like a phone when he was there before.
They dropped.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. I wonder if we were bombed again.
512 is a Texas number.
Interesting. Thanks for catching that, Claire.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe Misty. I don't know. I didn't really
Yeah.
think much of it.
You can have all kinds of weird area codes from people who used to live in an area and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Well, we did have a meeting several months ago where 2 people joined in and basically disrupted the meeting until we muted them. So who knows?
I had a Zoom meeting a couple months ago when somebody pulled out an AK-47.
Really?
They were not part of the meeting, and in a panic, okay, because I know basics for Zoom, but I found a way to remove them.
Yeah, that teaches you basics in a hurry.
Okay, let's go on to
Oh,
March
no.
election. You will hear from Michelle, later in the meeting, our current balance with the city does not allow us to have another printed postcard. So I'll be calling tomorrow to talk to, well, actually, we'll hear more about it tomorrow, but I will talk to Cindy to make sure that she's aware of that situation, and hopefully it'll be discussed at the summit.
John, does that mean we don't have enough money to hire an online tally system either?
Actually, there's significantly enough money for that.
Okay,
We have like $750. And if we were to go back to the voting system we used before, we should be okay. Because that was like $70 off the top of my head.
okay.
And Michelle has the sign-in list, and it looks like we can use that to determine who's qualified. So that's good. So is it our desire to hold the election the way we have the last 2 years, I guess, with an online voting system?
Well, is that part of the discussion about whether we're going to continue to do online meetings or in-person meetings, or is that sort of
No, we're talking about the election now.
well, you can't do an online election if you're in person. So it would mean that we're shifting back to doing just a Zoom meeting that day. You couldn't, that would really be way too complicated, I think.
Last year we had a hybrid election.
That makes sense because it lets a lot
were we
more
in the
people to
building?
participate.
Hang on, one at a time. I think Brenda was speaking first.
I was at home. And everybody, did people all have to bring their phones? Are you sure we were in person? In March of last year?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think so.
And I don't recall, I apologize.
I remember working it.
So what we did previously, at least the first time we did it, we had at least one person who phoned in her vote. And we took the vote that came out of the software, and then we modified it with the number of votes we gathered online on phone. And I suspect we could do the same if we did it in-house as well. But maybe shall we suspend discussion and have a discussion about whether we meet in person or in hybrid?
I would not want us to do it both ways. If we're gonna meet in person, I don't want to try and also manage the online. What I remember about the online was that I was tracking people who couldn't get their online vote to work so that they would text me, and I was keeping track that way and then counting those votes and had the list at home here of who could vote and who couldn't. That's what I remember about I remember sitting in my office and doing that.
Well, I think there's two questions we need to resolve here. Number one is, I think we agreed we would continue to use the software program, and then you raised the potential that we would not be having a hybrid meeting, which would mean we'd probably be wiser just to go to paper ballots. But I would again ask the question, do we want to suspend this discussion and clarify whether we're meeting in person or hybrid?
I didn't agree that we should be using the electronic system.
Okay, then we have agreed to nothing. Can
Right.
we do one or the other, please? Let's talk about, are we ready to move to only either online or in-house meetings? And let's go around and see what people think. Claire, what do you think?
I prefer in-person meetings, particularly for voting.
Okay, Jan?
Well, I don't know the tech stuff to manage the hybrid meeting that we've had so far. I mean, I would like for there to be the greatest opportunity for people to participate, but I'm not the one to manage like we've had, you know, for having a hybrid meeting. I can't do that, but I like that aspect of it. It just gives more people a chance to participate.
Michelle?
I'm in the same boat with Jan. I'd like to see as many people as possible, but I understand the management of that is kind of tricky. If I had to pick one, I would kind of say Zoom, just because I think that maybe you might get more people participating from home rather than the ones that come in, but that's just me.
Brenda?
I asked John to put this on the agenda because my observation is a year ago, we had more people at every general meeting. And so now that we're in person, we have less people in the room. And managing the hybrid is doable. Doing that when we're voting, we can still find a way to do voting via chat or voting via them voting without having to have it be electronic if we're going to be hybrid. I mean, if we're going to do, I don't think that changes this discussion. But my question was, if we were just on hybrid,
Just on hybrid or just on
excuse me,
Zoom?
just on Zoom, we were able to do some things easily with a remote people that you can't do when you're hybriding. Like you can't have the people on hybrid discussing things when you have it's just really complicated to try to do breakout rooms and then discussion in the room and then share that. But if you're all on Zoom, then we all play the game we all know how to play, and you go in breakout rooms and you come back and share it, and you're in the same space sharing.
So your preference would be Zoom?
I just want us to have a discussion. I did not come with a decision already made, John. I came to listen and see where we are. I did not come with my decision made.
He's doing a round. We're supposed to be having a round now about what people's opinion is.
That
Dan hasn't said anything.
Right, Dan is next.
I don't have a strong dog in the fight. I think that what would be, I mean, ideally we would have the tech kind of built out so that it would be essentially kind of seamless between in person and those online. We just have never had that skill set and bandwidth to be able to do that. And so I think that if we're gonna do a hybrid, that we kind of say from the outset that, you know, if you're opting to do this remotely, your experience is going to be much less than the people who are in person, and that there's a kind of an obligation or a preference for people to be there in person because you get more from that experience than you do online. And we apologize, but we just don't have that capability. But we still want to give people the option and the ability to participate if that's something that they wanted to do, but can't make it in.
Thank you. My thoughts. First of all, I'm not sure that meeting hybrid is the reason why we have a drop off in membership or attendance. I don't know what that issue is, but clearly we have really dropped in the number of people who are attending both online and in person. That's something we need to discuss, whether we think it's this or not, the issue of hybrid. I will add that city staff has encouraged us to meet hybrid. But I do know that in many neighborhoods, they either do one or the other. Some are doing hybrid. Jefferson West Side has got a different process where in the cold, dark winter months, they only meet via Zoom, and the rest of the year, they only meet in person. So that's another option as well. I like the idea of hybrid because it does allow people to participate one way or the other. It is a bit problematic. I think we are making incremental progress in solving our problems, but I don't know what'll happen when we go to Google Meets. So it looks like we're all over the board here.
Yeah,
Suggestion.
I want to thank Brenda, you know, for managing that, you know, and learning, and because and if we do hybrid, we need to have another person know how to do this besides Brenda, so she doesn't have to do it all, I would think.
Yeah, it's not a good idea to rely on one person all the time for anything.
I have
Claire?
a I move that we table this decision until we have more information about the new system, which might be tomorrow. And that we just discuss the voting this month, whether or not we want to have the March meeting all hybrid or whatever for March. I would like to say that the proposal for the activities in March is better done in person, but no reason why we can't just go ahead and be alienated.
So excuse me, Claire has made a motion to table further discussion on this issue to a date uncertain or to a date certain, Claire?
Well, I'm assuming we're gonna find out about the new system at the meeting tomorrow.
I think so. What Cindy said at the NLC meeting last night is it should become available the 1st of February, which is just around the corner.
So, which means we have to set up a whole training, we have we have a lot of work to do to implement that. So it's
Yeah.
not gonna happen for the March meeting. Or maybe it will, I don't know.
Well, that's
Can I
another
speak to
question
the-
for
can I
tomorrow
speak
night
to
is
this?
when do they take us off of Zoom?
Could I speak to this as the tech person? Or are we tabled and I need to be quiet?
No, I'm sorry, we were talking at the same time, but anyhow, it's your turn.
Well, Claire has a motion, so if we're following the big rules, I can't speak. So I'm just asking. I've watched, somebody in our community uses Google Meets all the time. It looks pretty darn simple. So I don't think it's going to be rocket science to learn it. I've Google all over my house, all over my computer already. I would hope that they let us use Zoom one more through the month of March or through the month of February while we're learning Google. It
I would think so
would be
too.
nice
Both
if they would
oppositions.
let us use Zoom all the way through March, because anybody who wanted to vote is used to using Zoom, and do the transition after elections just means you're not dealing with elections and a new system at the same time.
Could be problematic.
If we needed to use Zoom, surely they can just keep it up. If they can't, I have a Zoom we can use, but that doesn't let people are used to using the same Zoom number, you know?
So Brenda has a point. Claire, did you want to table this discussion till a date certain or just indeterminate?
Till we have the information that we need, which is if that's tomorrow, then tomorrow. But
Okay,
I
so
agree that we should maybe, if March is too complicated, then the first meeting would be April.
Right.
Okay.
See if
But
you
the
could
discussion
advocate-
needs to happen before then. The discussion needs to happen next meeting, I guess.
I agree.
Right,
So,
but if you all are there
if
tomorrow,
I may, Brenda,
mhm,
Claire has made a motion, and the way I interpret it is to table the discussion on whether we change the way we have our meetings until we know more information about what the new system will be like. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Jan seconds. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of tabling, raise your hand, please.
Okay. That's
Unanimous.
I
Thank you.
guess I'm supposed to take notes, aren't I? Okay.
Okay, now we're back to the discussion about the March election. So we'll figure out how we're going to hold it next month. We also need to talk about how we recruit candidates. Brenda?
what I was trying to say a moment ago is that I will not be at the meeting you're going to get this information. And I would really find it helpful as the tech person if you would advocate that we get to use Zoom for the next at least 2 meetings as a transition. Totally, I mean, don't bulk at doing what they want to do, but have them let us do Zoom. And I'm just asking you to take that with you. Thank
Okay, thank you, Brenda. So back to the discussion on how we hold the election. We tabled how we get candidates is where we're at.
Well, I think this is the major discussion. I mean, we should have had this discussion 6 months ago. It's, right now, do we have any potential candidates?
Jan, you were gonna check with somebody. Did you get any feedback?
I haven't checked. I didn't do that.
Okay,
I can. If I am asked to do that, I was remiss in not doing it, but I can do that.
I think if we're gonna make any progress, we should have a committee. Is anyone willing to volunteer to work on a recruitment committee?
I will.
Thanks, Dan. I would hopefully we would have more than just Dan.
I'll help with that.
Okay, Dan and Jan.
I can help them too.
Thanks, Michelle. But let's continue talking. Let me capture that. Well, does someone want to speak now, and I'll be capturing that information?
I wonder, Claire, if there might be any, would there be any point in sort of reaching out to all the people, particularly the businesses that help with the river celebration, and saying, you were part of this, and the board is looking for new members. Would you be interested? Please come to our next meeting.
Sure, I think that's a great idea. And we will put a call forward in the newsletter, which we need to discuss. But, personal invitation and request to apply is the most efficient way to do it, most effective way to do it.
Well, I'm not talking about a personal letter. I'm talking about a mass email, but the target people would be the folks that you've got a pretty good email list from the celebration.
I gotta take a call. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna volunteer if it's okay to be on that committee as well. I did talk to, I now have to remember her name. Julie Hume. And unfortunately, she would be an excellent contributor to our board, but she is consistent in her refusal.
What's the requirement? Someone who's not been coming to the board meetings, becoming a member of the board, or not been coming to the general meetings,
Right.
becoming a member of the board, they need to come to the next meeting and tell us they're going to be running at the next meeting. Is that Claire's on the phone, but part of what this discussion is how do we ask people if they're interested to write us a paragraph, and it goes out in the end of February newsletter, right? Isn't that what
That's what we've done in the past, yes. Which means that if we were to do that, we would need to have that process highlighted in the newsletter.
Can you please repeat that?
Yeah, Brenda, correct me if I miss, but I think Brenda suggested that we try to recruit people to come to the February meeting with a statement of why they want to run for the board.
Kind of, that's what I sort of said. I was trying to remember what we've done in the past, and I think you've put a paragraph in the newsletter at the end of February of people who are going to be interested in the board meeting, right?
We can do that also.
So
Assuming
John,
we have them. Yeah, Jan.
so if this would take actually pretty much of an accelerated recruitment, to have people come to the February meeting with some kind of a statement of purpose. I'm of course, being the one organizing the meeting for February, pretty interested in having as much time available for that meeting, or to have some sort of a statement for February. Does that suggest that potential candidates would have some time to read their statement, or have some type of a platform at that February meeting?
It's not on our agenda for that to happen.
Yeah.
What you, I mean, you're right. Accelerated means by next week, Claire needs those paragraphs.
By this week, Friday.
Okay.
So
It's
the
not gonna
newsletter would have information about the fact that we have an election and how people could get involved. We have
Well,
until the meeting
in-
2 weeks later.
Until
to get,
March.
Um,
Oh, until the next board meeting, you mean?
no, the next general meeting. Wouldn't we want them to show up at the next February general meeting and introduce themselves?
Well, that's what we're talking about. And Jan is saying it's not on, and Brenda was saying it's not on the agenda. Daniel has his hand up.
Go ahead, Dan, and welcome, Susan.
Has there been any thought, and Brett, this question's kind of between Brett and I, of maybe talking to some of the business owners who we approached, either got a video or they're kind of in the queue for a video when the weather improves this spring. I'm thinking specifically of Clink's bicycle, because they were involved with the river celebration as well, and some of the other, either the direct owners themselves, or maybe their spouse, or partner, or maybe even one of their managers. That way we have not just to have business on the board, but they have already a documented interest in supporting what we're doing. But it's a huge time commitment, so that's kind of it would have to come from a personal ask, and go into it with, this is what the time commitment is, but we would really welcome and love to have you, that kind of thing.
Right.
What's your thought, Brenda?
And I fished for that when I I looked for that everywhere. I think Clinks are overcommitted. You might reach out to Clinks and see if you can get a better yes than I did, just because you're a guy. I don't think that was the reason. I think he's really took over a new business and he's trying to make a go of it, and they're busier than hops in there. The only owner I can think of who might say yes would be the car guy that's across from
Autorama?
the guy that's across the street from the
Brian Slater. Brian Slater.
who's
Yeah,
been
I backed him in the past. He wasn't interested, but he may be now.
But what about
I don't know who Brian Slater is. Can you please tell us what that what does that mean? What is a Brian
Northeast
Slater?
Auto, proprietor.
Thank you. That's a business. Thank you.
Right.
What about the Tio Pepe's folks who came to our meeting?
That's a good place to go.
I can go ask him again. It's not like I haven't asked him before. I mean, last September was the time to start recruiting board members, and as I was making those other asks. And I'm just saying, the only place I felt like there was in the businesses directly, they would be part of my thought of a more general email, but the personal ask, I don't.
I would want to go with you, Brendan. I think that, I'm not saying, I think that the layer that I would add, I don't think it's the guy thing. I think it's the business owner thing.
Right.
I have a very complex, multifaceted small business, and I'm still able to do it.
Okay.
And not to generalize or dumb down what they do, but let's just say I would trade it in a heartbeat. So, if I can do it, you can do it. Let's show up and do it.
Okay. All right. I'll get to Brian and the cycle guy
Just for information, Brenda, thanks for doing that. Brian is not terribly happy that we are restricting the expansion of his business in our neighborhood plan.
Well, if he was on the board, he could complain about it more directly.
That's a good argument for getting on the board. I agree.
what are we, it doesn't matter. That's not relevant for our discussion of how to recruit people.
Well, in the case of Brian, it definitely is because he will not be able to expand his business if the neighborhood plan is approved as proposed.
Well, so what is the agenda? What is the topic on the table right now?
The election. And
More
how do we recruit
specifically?
people?
Okay.
So
we just-
one item could we
Jim.
clarify is what board members are either up for election or moving off the board?
We have 4 positions that have come up. We have, let's see, Jan is one, Misty is one, Susan is one, and I'm forgetting who the 4th one is, so I'll have to look it up.
I'm not running.
Brenda,
I'm off. Are you
Oh,
not?
Brenda. And 2 of those people have indicated they're not returning.
Could you talk real names and not just those people? That would be helpful.
Well, if you want to out yourself, go ahead.
I'm not outing myself.
I've been very clear. I am not coming back to the program next year. So I am one of those people.
Right, and so am I.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
That, by the way, does not mean that I am not willing to keep helping with the hybrid stuff if people are willing to show up at 6 o'clock so it can be done early enough to make it work.
Okay, thank you.
Here's,
So we have 4 openings and at least 2 have to be filled with new people. Yes, Claire.
if this is off topic, then postpone it, but I noticed in the new NORP that we only really need to have 5 board members, and I'm wondering if that might be worth considering.
Eventually, but we won't be able to change it by March
Why?
Okay,
Why?
because we would have to modify our charter. And our charter requires the membership to vote to modify it, take it to the city where the lawyers will review it, and then they will put it on the city council's agenda to change our charter. I don't think that would happen by March.
Well, maybe we should fast track that. That might be a lot easier to fast track than getting uninformed board members.
Brenda, it's not possible.
yeah, okay. So,
Process for next year.
yeah. No, I think the new board should take up the new NORP. The new board should take up the new NORP.
Well, the new charter, I'm
New charter.
revising the charter.
Yeah,
Okay. And Claire points out that we could have fewer than 9 board members. We can have as few as 5.
Well, and you just said we couldn't do that without a change in the charter. Now, which is which?
It cannot be
should
done
change the
without a change
charter.
in the charter. But Claire mentioned 2 possibilities. One, how many board members we have, and the other, what was the other, Claire?
how often we meet.
Okay,
So, John, what does the city do to us if we don't have 9 members? Do they just say you can't meet with only 5 people?
No, they say you can't have your money.
Okay,
no, what our charter says, Brenda, is that then the board has a responsibility to fill those vacancies within the next month. And it's often taken us 3 months to do so, but nobody seems to slap our hands.
okay. So I would suggest we're better off not having a full slate of 4 more people that we're voting in, or 2. I don't know how many, you gotta vote 4 new people in. Is,
Well, 2 potentially. Both
Okay.
Jan and Misty said they will continue to serve if there's not enough.
okay. So if we don't have people who really want to step into this, I suggest you don't elect people who don't really want to be there.
Exactly.
And let it go. Just keep doing the best you can. And when somebody comes to a meeting that's exciting, bring them on.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we want to say, go to a previous board member who we would not like on the board and see if he's willing to come back. But
Or put out. that
if
you
I may
know-
finish, Brenda,
Oh, you-
that also raises the possibility that that individual, if we don't have 4 candidates, would get elected.
I won't vote for him.
We elect 4, and if there are 4 candidates, all 4 will probably get elected.
I don't need to vote for 4 candidates. That's not required.
No, you don't. But if we have 4 candidates and 4 positions, they're all going to be on the board.
Who says who? Can't, what, if somebody's running and nobody votes for them? Do they automatically get on the board? No.
I'd
They
have
could
to
vote for
double
them.
check the charter, but I think yes.
Well,
It's an incentive to have 4 people, ideally 4 people who are interested in what the neighborhood does and how they can get involved. So I guess
Well,
our committee has our challenge.
It's also, I mean, sometimes the democracy, other people win, and if at the end of the day, the neighborhood doesn't want to have enough leaders to step up into the post that would deny the person we're talking about from having a seat, then they get a seat. So, I mean, as much as we don't want that to happen, but it's also kind of like the neighborhood needs to start, putting the time and effort in too, I mean, we all of us can't be expected to do it, forever.
Is there an insurrection clause in our constitution?
So have we gotten as far as we can with this?
I think so.
It's incumbent upon those of us who agreed to be a committee to come up with something soon. I'll send you guys an email and try to find a time to meet.
Okay.
Okay,
I just got a text from Misty. She's in the hospital with her dad in the ICU.
ouch.
Oh, man.
can you
Okay.
text her back a little support from us or something? Just tell her.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, next agenda item. And we are definitely way behind. Let me take what I hope is a quick one. How did our neighborhood fare in the ice storm? Is there anything of importance for the neighborhood to discuss?
Better than Springfield.
Yeah.
Jan?
Yeah, there were 2 big cottonwood trees that came down right in the middle of the Filbert Grove.
Ooh. Is the city jumping
And-
on it?
And I had an email from Joan that morning and I went down there. I rode my bike on the ice. It worked okay. I took some photos and about 4 trees were pretty much took direct hits. Another 4 trees, varying degrees of damage, but there's 65 trees in the Filbert Grove. I mean, this is going to disfigure the central part of the Filbert Grove. When they cut those trees up, the cottonwoods, and get them out of there and clean it up, you will see some damage. And that'll be more easy to really access. But definitely some of the Filbert trees got some major damage in those the cottonwoods coming down. But
Thanks
there's
for-
65 trees, and if we lose 4, well, maybe we can replant them.
That'd be good. Maybe with some resistant trees. Okay. Well, let's leave that one there.
I was just gonna
Uh-huh.
offer my thing real quick on it. As I essentially was one of, I don't know, 5 people or 4 people or whatever what it was that ran Selkie Field during the holiday farm fire. So got a nice crash course in kind of our emergency preparedness or lack thereof. And I really hoped that, when the ice storm was going on, I'd see some semblance that we had learned from some of that. And I really wasn't seeing a whole lot. And Thankfully, it was only a 4-day, for the most part for everybody, a 4-day emergency. I'm at the point now where I'd almost ask RRCO to use its power as a neighborhood association to demand to see what the plan is. In my book, the most common disasters that we have are going to be forest fires, ice storms, floods, that kind of stuff that's going to happen on a schedule, so much that we literally knew about it from a forecast. This is coming. You can somewhat plan for it. It's coming in a week. And how there isn't a book somewhere on a shelf somewhere that says ice storm or flood or fire, that you can open it up and say, all right, in the River Road area, this is the most threatened areas. These are the neighborhood leaders who are already been tapped to kind of lead an effort if we need to activate them. This is where the evacuation is going to be. I'm just down the list. And if it doesn't exist, then we demand that it gets created. Because to watch a steady train of senior citizens trickle into the Springfield City Hall looking for firewood, to watch them deliver a single tractor trailer at 2:30 p.m. when they close at 5 with no plan to guard it overnight, so that when you get there in the morning, it's all gone, and you watch person after person have to go back to a cold house, and that's just after 3 days. It just boggles my mind that we don't have something better. And so I would suggest that be something we tackle in the first, Q1, Q2.
Okay.
Well, I read an article today about Egan warming centers. The staff actually refused to close down when they were ordered to close down because they couldn't put people out into the ice in the cold. And so they were overwhelmed and overcrowded, and were doing like 24-hour shifts and stuff like that. There was like serious disaster, life-threatening problems with that whole system.
Yeah.
Dan, would you like to get in touch with Chelsea and see what wisdom she
Sure.
has about how to connect? The last time
Sure.
I talked to her, she was less displeased with the city, so there may be some hope.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
There are, I think the city is picking up something. There's 2 people, one of whom, at least one person in Riversong who is now picking up to being those disaster designated people. Sorry, Claire, I didn't see your hand.
No, I finished my statement.
But the other thing, I mean, I know what you do in an ice storm. You stay in the house and you go out with ice crampons.
If you have a house that has heat, that was the problem. A lot of people didn't have heat.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to make beleaguer this point. The thing that is the most pressing for me that I think the RRCO could do is ask to see where we fit into the plan, to see the plan, which I think is totally fine for us to be able to ask, see what the damn plan is.
Right.
But 2, it should be that we request that the city get an after action report after each one of these events. What worked? What didn't? What's the plan to make what didn't work next time?
Right.
The fact that we never look backward and say, all right, well, that didn't work. How are we going to fix it? And then we just pretend like it's going to get fixed next time. It's just bonkers to me.
According to the news reports I'm looking at, that process is being called up for quite a bit.
Yeah, at its peak, Riverbend had 179 patients in the ER waiting to be seen, mostly for slips and falls, breaks, sprains, that kind of thing. But they're all intermixed between COVID patients and flu and pneumonia and everything else.
Right.
Why you can't use the fairgrounds as a triage center for non-life-threatening injuries, since we don't have an ER here anymore. I mean, just little things like that, and get the community to start talking about it. But right now, we just kind of just go, all right, on to tomorrow. Doesn't seem like a very good plan to me.
Right.
So Dan, let's see what you can learn and make it an agenda item for the next board meeting.
Yeah, it works.
Okay, thank you.
What I was trying to also say is I think people have to be responsible for themselves and have some emergency plan for themselves as well. And not, I mean, I came from, yes, I lived at the coast, but we can't expect the city is going to come take care of us.
Okay. Shall we go on to the next item? Let's see, New Norp. Again, we will, at those of you who are attending the summit, we'll talk about that tomorrow. I have reviewed it, Claire, and it's much better than it was before, and I don't have any significant heartburn about what's there now.
I had some questions about it.
Go ahead.
What is
Um,
this topic? The,
Okay, sorry, Jan. There's something called the Neighborhood Organization Recognition Policy, and that's the document by which the city council basically acknowledges the neighborhoods in their program. And it has a whole bunch of stuff about how if you have to have elections, you have to have 2 publications. A neighborhood can be no smaller than, now moved from 500 to 700. It's basically the rules under which we operate as defined by the city council. Claire?
So one question was, they were trying to make it less ambiguous about how much time we're allowed for public participation in decision-making process.
Uh-huh.
And, it's, I don't see why they can't just say at least 1 month or 1 meeting cycle. And make it specific for that, because we keep getting calls for public participation with a 1 week advance notice, and that's bad.
Right. So this is the city contacting the neighborhood for input, not us giving feedback to the city. Correct?
You know what? I cut and paste it from the whole thing, so I don't know about that.
It sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable point.
Yeah. They say, and then, okay, currently NORP allows neighborhood associations to include all provisions typically found in bylaws into their charter. This separation will make the process of updating bylaws simpler and fully controlled by neighborhood association boards. That confuses me. I thought we were advocating that bylaws be separated from the charter instead of in the charter.
That's not I'll look at it again, Claire, but that wasn't my understanding.
Okay, maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, but my point is this word is
It's worth looking at, yes.
Yeah. And then just 2 other notes I made for our own information is that existing and new neighborhood associations must include an equity statement in their charters. I don't know if we have that or not.
We don't.
Okay, board needs only 5 members and general meetings that we only need to have 2 general meetings a year. So maybe we can meet less often than monthly, but we can take that up at another time.
Yeah, those are, our charter says we have 9. We can modify the charter to have fewer. It's our decision to have monthly meetings, not
Right.
the charter's requirement.
So, but let's take that up with the new board.
Okay, so NORP 30-day response time for project notification, board meetings and membership, and I missed your second one.
Just about whether or not provisions are in the bylaws or the separation of
see.
bylaws and
Yeah.
charter.
I'll review that, but I think their point was to get as much as possible into the bylaws rather than the charter.
Look, I
I'd like
think
to
that
make sure the
we would
language
agree
is
with that,
right.
but that's not how I interpret what they wrote. Yeah.
Got it. Well, we can have that discussion tomorrow.
Yeah.
By the way, how many people are planning to attend?
I am.
Just, okay, Jan. Good. There'll be 3 of us there then.
Come on, you guys, don't you want a yummy cafe yum dinner?
My birthday.
is that what it is? Cafe Yum?
That's what it usually is. Yeah. It's your
And some sort of-
birthday?
Pardon?
It's her
Wait,
birthday.
whose birthday is it?
It'll be mine tomorrow.
Oh, happy early birthday, Michelle. Woo!
Thank you. 70.
Oh my, I'm 70
No.
this year also.
You young children.
Yeah.
You'll have to
Okay.
tell me what to do on my 70th.
So this should be quick. Several neighborhood associations are having a Meals on Wheels food drive. And the question is, do we want to do that? It's like February 2nd, or I'm not sure it's that soon, but it's on a Saturday. And we don't have the ability to do the drives we done in the past on a Saturday because the park is open and they will not give us space. But we could do a green food drive, which means we encourage people to donate money rather than food to Food for Lane County. And one of the arguments in favor of that is if they get money, their buying capacity is that they can basically get $3 worth of food for the dollar worth of food you give them in a can. So I wonder, do we want to put a request in the newsletter this week for people to participate in that food drive?
Do they have the donation tab link information for people to donate to?
Yes, if we agree to do this, I will get a link that we can then put in the newsletter.
Okay. People, Darmalaya did a benefit for seniors, senior and disability services, food Meals and Wheels program, because apparently there's this huge waiting list for people to get meals, like 6 months waiting list.
Wow.
So I think it's an urgent issue.
So would this mean
This,
to
Jan?
participate would be to put the information in the newsletter and how people can make their donation, and that's it?
That's one way, and I think that's about all we could manage to do at this point, especially given that if we did it with pickup of cans, it would have to be on a Saturday, and that's not feasible for us at Emerald Park.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if it's just putting an article in the newsletter with the relevant information, I mean, that's easy enough to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brenda?
Is, the link is directly to the Meals on Wheels site, not to us to then pass on, correct? It's a direct donation.
Yes, it's direct to
Yeah.
them. And we get credit for what that's worth.
And how would people know that we got credit for that?
They have a page where that information will be available. We can put that in our next annual report.
Right.
So, would anyone like to propose we do this?
I propose that
I second.
we have
Okay.
an item in the newsletter to
Would
support
anyone
that.
like to be the liaison to talk to Food for Lane County?
I will.
Okay,
Do you have the information, the contact info?
I will get that to you if we pass the motion. So all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. I'll get with you tomorrow, Claire.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, and especially Claire.
It's the least we can do, especially if we're not volunteering for Egan Warming Center.
There you go. Do you want to revisit the board meeting day decision? I feel a little concerned because Misty's the one that we changed for and she's not here. Maybe we should have that discussion after the election and we see when the board members are available to meet.
Sounds good.
I will say that it is somewhat problematic to get a general meeting together in the short interval we have between our board meeting and the general meeting, the way things are set up now. Okay, we'll set that for a March board meeting discussion. Okay,
February discussion.
February, isn't it, John?
well, we won't have the new board until March.
Oh,
Oh.
right. Okay.
So, John, why is it hard to set up a meeting from the time we meet? Because we're setting up agendas months ahead.
This is the first time that I can think of in many months that we have 2 meetings scheduled out ahead.
Right.
Generally, we set our agenda or not even set our agenda in the board meeting before.
But many of us have been begging to have that changed, and we've now changed that. So I'm just saying this board,
I'm saying that it's put a newsletter out on the 1st when we have a meeting 4 days in advance.
okay,
And
It's also
people haven't gotten their
problematic.
copy to me to get it out is causes a big stressor.
okay, got it. It's not so much, it's about the newsletter as well.
Yes.
Got it.
Good point.
John,
Okay.
can I ask a question that's a little bit off, but it would take only a moment to
Sure, Jan.
respond, and it's to Claire. I understand that, of course, you're out of town for the beginning of February, so that's why you weren't able to do this proposed meeting about ad hoc neighborhood groups,
Right. We switched that to March.
and
Correct.
that's in March.
Right.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Okay, I'd like to hear a little more about that, but we can do that later. Because
It's
that's
on
good.
the
I like
agenda.
that. I want to know more what you have in mind.
Yeah, well, it's in the agenda. We can discuss it.
Yeah, but we
And
can,
Brenda, I
Sure.
think it's great if we can get 2 or 3 months out with agendas. Let's work for that, general meeting agendas.
that
Okay,
ties into something I have an interest in, Claire.
Yeah, great. And it overlaps somewhat with what you're doing. So
That's it. Exactly.
okay, we're almost to the end. Budget setting. Which, Michelle, shall we start with your reporting of our finances?
It took some doing, and with John's help, I finally got the most current version of a spreadsheet from Cindy about where our expenditures are. We do have that spreadsheet available in the treasurer's report on the shared drive. So y'all can take a look at it, or if we need to, we can put it up. I can have John put it up on the screen. I can kind of walk you through what's going on there. So what we need to do, back off a little bit of a shift here. What we need to do is set thanks, John.
Yep.
Set an agenda or a budget for the next year. Now, my first question is, the city of Eugene runs on a fiscal year. So as you can see, some of their allocations are happened on July 1st. So they're running, probably a July 1st through June 30th is their fiscal year.
Mhm.
So if we do budget setting, we should copy that same time frame. Because to rotate it or try and do a calendar year, budget setting is going to be, it just gets icky and sticky, and you're trying to divide things up into different years, and it's going to be ugly. So we should probably stay with the city's fiscal year structure, just to make things simpler and easier to follow and that sort of thing. But reporting wise, then that means that you're not going to have any reporting until after July 1st. So is that, and I just wanted to check in with everybody that that's okay. I know, Claire, you wanted some information, and it's probably not going to give you exactly what you're looking for at this
now that
point.
was just for the annual report thing that I
Okay.
already sent out.
Okay,
We're
awesome.
done with that.
Okay, good.
But
Go
Can we
ahead, John.
talk about it before we move on, of what we
Sure.
have?
Sure.
We have a convoluted process in that we receive money from the county and we also receive money from the city. The city only covers the 39.5% of our addresses that are actually city addresses. And they insist that even though we have more money from the county because we didn't expend all of it in previous years, that money stays in our account, but we can't expend any more than the 39% plus the 60.5% allows us to spend. So basically, although we have $4,159 worth of county money, we can only spend $749 of, or excuse me, $453 worth of it, for a total of $749. Does that make sense to everybody, the way I explained it?
No,
No,
I mean, the
The
ruling,
policy doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
what happens to that county money?
It just continues to be carried forward.
Yeah,
you-
the county transfers that money once a year to the city and they don't want it back. So it sits in a pot that we can't get to unless we can match it with the money the city gives us.
And it has to be, it
39
has
to
to,
50%.
it absolutely has to be matched with city funds only, because I checked with them when I sat down with Cindy about other sources of income that could be used as, well, that's what we call match. And it has to be city money because Lane County contracts with the city of Eugene to manage that fund. Their
I
fund,
think
their
we should
their
sue
por-
for use of our funds.
We should what?
We should sue for use of our funds. That's not right. That
I
policy
think-
is not right.
I know. So this, I think it's a really good opportunity for you guys tomorrow in your meeting, maybe to bring up I heard whispers of that was a possibility that they might be
Good.
looking at, of changing that. It's kind of a granting requirement, and to me, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
Right.
But it just so happens to be that we're, it's probably us and, Saco that are in this boat with partly city, county jurisdictional issues.
Yeah, there are small numbers in other neighborhoods, but they don't worry about it.
Right. It doesn't make this, I mean, you don't have this dramatic amount of carry forward. And like John just pointed out, there's enough money in there to pay for a mailing, and yet we're short. We only have almost $50 that we can use.
boy.
So John's gonna take it to Cindy tomorrow and see, what their advice is, or see if she can pony up some more money. I don't know.
Well, it puts us in a strange place if we're supposed to send 2 mailings and we only have money for one.
Right,
Um,
and it's the postage, and the postage is what really sends it over the top. I see that the printing is expensive, but the postage is, on top of that, that's quite a bit. That's a lot.
It's also though the only vehicle we have to touch every household in
That's right.
RRCO versus just our 300 or 400 people on our mailing list. So it's critical, and without that, I don't see how the city thinks that we can do what our charter is.
Right.
If we are only speaking to 300 to 400 people on a regular basis, your argument to Cindy could be, then there's really seriously no point of even. Honestly, there's no point of having an RRCO if you can't communicate out to and with your community,
I
except
agree.
to those few people that'll give you their email.
It's just the bulk mailing, the lesser the amount, the more expensive it is, which is really bizarre because it's under that bulk mailing permit. So, yeah.
What's the punishment if you just say, we're doing it anyway?
Somebody's gotta
What
pay for
anyway,
it.
Dan?
Somebody's got to pay
there's-
QSL.
Yeah, well, but in this world here, Dan, they pay these expenses directly. This isn't a claim like a typical grant is, where we would pay for something and then ask to get reimbursed from the grantor. This is
Got it.
where we just make requests and they make these payments directly.
Got it.
Jan?
Yeah. Is that discussion over right there? Because I got something else I want to ask.
Well, it does raise the issue that if we have the money to do a newsletter before the March election, which we are theoretically required to do, we need someone to do that newsletter. Susan
You
not
literally
available.
have QSL will not tell you. I can tell you right now, QSL is not going to get you a newsletter in homes before that meeting in March, if you haven't even started writing anything now. I mean, maybe a postcard, if you want to switch to a postcard and just do a postcard. But if you want to do a full-on newsletter, we needed to start 4 months ago.
Okay.
It's a reality.
Is
So,
there a reason we continue to use QSL, or has anybody looked at
They're the
other?
ones who are contracted with the city.
well,
Correct.
we could go to somebody else,
county.
but we'd have to go through hoops to make that happen.
Right. I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So my hand is up,
Yes, Brenda,
Okay.
wondering,
My hand was up before.
that's true, Jan.
I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna change.
This is about the newsletter. Why don't we let Brenda go first?
Okay, my item is not about the newsletter, so I'll wait until we're finished with the newsletter.
Thank you. Susan may have spoken to that, but are we sending, are we sending something out about the April recycle?
Oh, there's no print newsletter or any sort planned at this time. So only communication we would do is the work we've done that we've already negotiated with directly with Emerald Park. And that includes a flyer and includes flyers in their location. It includes visibility on their sign outside, as well as inclusion in their quarterly or their annual, semi-annual mailers.
Okay, and we're gonna have something, I assume, in this month's newsletter. You're working with Claire on that for the end of this
As
week?
soon as, I mean, it's the exact same information that we've put before. It's April 7th from 9 to noon. Nothing's changed.
I appreciate that, Susan, but in order to be sure it gets in and with the right stuff, just send me something.
You bet. Has the email gone out already asking for that?
No,
for
it
the
goes out
deadline?
on the 1st.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. I didn't realize if y'all had sent the email out to us asking us to submit the items for the
I
month.
maybe
I
have not. I
apologize if
don't
I
know.
missed
I
that.
think I did, but it wasn't the same as usual. I just remembered something on the budget.
Well, let me do one more thing on the newsletter. Susan, if we do a postcard, sounds like we won't do a newsletter. Would you not want a line or two about recycling?
I mean, it could be put on there. I don't think there's any challenge with that. I do know that we did that the last event. We did that for, the River Fest event. And we only had one person tell us they learned it from that event. Because that was really focused on the Riverfront Festival, which is what it was about. So I think, just trying to tack it on with a one-liner or something wasn't really doable.
But would it be
But-
problematic if we did it?
As long as it stays within the River Road community area, no, it wouldn't be a problem. We'd need to get you different text.
Okay, thank you, Claire.
Last year we had extra money that we didn't know how to spend, so we bought an ad in the catalog for the rec center. I think it was $2,000 for an ad for the year. And she asked me if we wanted to redo that. And I didn't give her an answer because I was supposed to bring it here and I didn't put it on the agenda.
It's okay. Let's find out tomorrow night. They have a new allocation process for the money that we get from the city. Let's revisit that after we hear what they're doing and see if we do have any more money.
I'm wondering if this county money can be directed in that way.
We could ask.
Certainly a
We've
county.
heard so far from Cheryl, no, but maybe that's unique because it's county,
It's a county thing. It's not a city thing.
but it's a county thing, but they're two different agencies. I don't know. We'll ask.
Okay.
The other part of the rush we had at the end of the year was to try to zero out our allocation.
Right.
I think that's something we should make an intentional effort between now and June to spend what we have.
Yes, absolutely, you should.
And maybe someday we'll ask the county not to give us money one year so we can reduce this. I'd rather find a way to spend it, but if we can't, that's another option. Susan.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that as you're looking at allocating the budget, we would like to be able to have about $75 for the recycling event for each event, so $150 a year. And if we can get that $75 coming out of this budget, this pool for the next event, that would be helpful.
Okay. Again, it depends on whether their rules allow us to do more than the 400 for one event, but it's certainly something we should ask.
So a flyer for an event. So the money
That
to
may
print
well
a
be
flyer
fine.
for an
I'm not
event.
saying we can't. I'm
Okay. Okay, thank you.
not trying to be Johnny Downer. Jan,
Yeah, I'm looking at this spreadsheet and I'm seeing the $400, which was the cost for the portable toilets, you know, the two of those. And I see something under the city, 158, and Lane County, 242, which of course adds up to 400, but I had a check from the city for $400.
right. You
And
got
that
it from the city, but they use county funds as
Okay,
well.
there's an explanation for that. That's in order right there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Anytime you spend $1 of city money, you can only spend $1.57 of county money.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So as far as budget setting, are we ready to move on to that? Because we've had a good look at what the situation is right now. Like I said, this is in the shared drive in the treasurer's report, so y'all can see this. And we can talk about setting budgets, or we can see how they're going to change things and maybe revisit this next month and have a better idea. Plus, if we stay on their same fiscal year time frame, that we've got plenty of time, to set a budget. I realize we're starting to spend money now, but I don't think that it's going to get us into any kind of a problem area after this last expenditure gets done.
The problem I have with setting a budget now, I think we should postpone that,
Okay.
is that we don't have line items for what our budget expenses are. This
Right.
budget, this spreadsheet doesn't say a newsletter costs, $5,000 or however much it costs. And
Right.
that's the information we need.
Right, absolutely.
It actually is there. That was
It shows, well,
$3,000. Pardon?
under the mailed flyer, it shows the printing was $1,920 and postage was $1,131.
So that's a newsletter, or that always at the flyer for the.
That was a print newsletter.
Okay. But that wasn't.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I apologize, Claire. You're correct. That is the postcard.
That was
and
the
the
postcard we
postage for
sent
the
for the
postcard.
river celebration. Yeah.
Correct. For the river celebration.
Right.
We had done the last newsletter was last May or
Yeah.
April, one of those.
So that information is not included in this budget breakout.
No,
Yeah.
but it's relatively close. Evidently, the cost of printing the newsletter is minor compared to the postage for either. But we can get that information. I think Cindy has information.
It's not,
about
John. If you
her.
look at the numbers, it's $2,000
Can I
for
finish,
printing and
please?
$1,100 for postage.
But we can look back
If I
at
may, please.
we can look back at May's charges. We just have to ask for the spreadsheet from the
Yeah.
previous year.
I have all this information. We
Okay.
really just,
Move on.
let's move on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Generally, Cindy can give us a per address cost for newsletters and for cards. Okay, as I look at the agenda, I think we've gotten through everything except for discussion of the February and March meeting. And the one advantage of planning ahead is we get a chance for feedback from the board on what is planned. So let us start with Jan. Tell us what you're doing in February.
Can we remove the spreadsheet?
Sure, thanks.
So, okay, I can provide an update for this. I can even do a screen share and I can show you something if you want, but that is up to,
We've got 3 minutes to the end of the meeting.
okay, I'll just go verbal. So what we have, the main thrust of the meeting is to explain gardening and how gardening can be a way to access other benefits for the neighborhood.
Jan, if I can interrupt, we actually have 13 minutes. Go ahead.
We do? We don't end at 8:30?
I
We
do.
have it at the agenda
So-
says 8:40, Claire.
So that's the ideal is both to explain the value of gardening in its own right, you know, fresh vegetables out of the garden. There's lots of good reasons for doing that, but also what we'd like to do is to explain how gardening can add to a wider range of parameters of well-being to the neighborhood, you know, like building community, essentially. We have a number of people who are going to be part of the program. I think it's important that we have a little bit of a history of gardening, food production in River Road. I'll say a few things about the Calapooya. You know, they were here first. They had their own way to produce food here. I asked Robbie Logan if he would do a very short history of since the year 2000. That's kind of a permaculture orientation. There's a lot of really good stories in the neighborhood people should know about. We have somebody to talk from the School Garden Project, somebody from Mims Garden, and somebody from the Master Gardeners. What I'd like for them to do is to explain what they have to offer the neighborhood. This is not a program to explain how to do a compost pile. That's not what we're doing in this program. But the Master Gardeners have all kinds of programs and workshops during the year, and we'll share what those are so people can learn those kind of skills. I'd also like to do a little show and tell with pictures that illustrate visually more these ideas of how gardening can be the access to a broader range of benefits to the community, to the neighborhood, like taking down fences, like people say somebody has a shady property and somebody has a sunny property, they might want to share the property. You know, these kinds of, I would say, a little bit more advanced ideas than just say, okay, let's dig up the backyard and plant a garden. You know, things that one idea that I want to illustrate is I know a place in Portland where it's an apartment complex that has awesome gardens on that apartment complex property. So, so there's a lot of good stuff. And what I'm trying to do is have all the content on one slideshow so that when people take their turn for presenting about their part of the program, their pictures are already on the slideshow. And I'm assuming that this is something 45, 50, 55 minutes or something like that. I'd like to leave a little bit of time, if possible, we know how that goes, at the end for some discussion.
Okay, my personal question is, I would like to share what we learned about in our November meeting about traffic issues in the neighborhood. And I'm thinking that's a 15-minute item. I'm asking you and Claire whether you have time in your agenda for that to be dropped in, which would be better.
Yeah, well, I was told earlier that that's what you wanted to do. So of course, I would consider the more time for the gardening part of this, the better, but I'm sort of budgeting something maybe a bit less than an hour for that. So I've been told that opening announcements and welcoming and all of that's 15 or 20 minutes. So if you're doing that for 15 minutes, John, that kind of leaves an amount that I'm sort of assuming is what's available for this program. So that's not a shock to me. You know, I was
Okay.
anticipating that.
Good,
I do
thank you.
think we ought to have the garden before we have the report. I think the follow-up is, I think people are coming for the main piece, and we had a meeting the other back, I don't remember what it was, but people came for a topic and we did other things before the topic. And about halfway through the meeting, we had people saying, when are we going to get to the agenda I came for? So if gardening is the agenda, we should start with that as soon as we possibly can.
Oh, that's a important thought right there. I hadn't thought of that. That's worth.
I'm okay with that as long as you can stop when you need to stop, Jan. I would go the other way in that I think yours would more likely evolve into more time, but I'm fine with either.
Well, I can sympathize with that too. Do you know that you need 15 minutes, John?
I'll make it 15 or less, yes.
And Jan, for the sharing, if you have that on, I assume you just would bring your computer, right?
It occurs to me that I need to talk with you about that.
Okay.
I can put the slideshow on a thumb drive and we could plug it into your computer. Will that work?
It depends on if I have the equipment to take a thumb drive from you. We should
Yeah.
test it. We should do it early, the week before.
Absolutely, yeah, because I work on a desktop. I don't work on a laptop.
Okay.
So you and I will figure that out. But
Okay.
yeah, John, I'm sympathetic with what your comment is too. I would like, I think even more so if what your report can be, well, as brief as what covers all the bases that you need to cover. But I like the idea of ending with the garden stuff fresh in people's heads. I actually kind of like that better. Brenda's idea is good too. I'm kind of sympathetic to John's more, I think.
Okay. Without objection, we'll go that way. Any questions for Jan? Seeing none, Claire, tell us about what you're doing in March or February. March.
March. So
March.
March, the agenda is the elections, right?
Right.
So we have to figure out how much time we need for that, and then this will just work around that. The theme is informal neighboring. The idea is that there's a lot of neighboring going on that people don't even think about. So I have a list of folks that I'm asking to just come to the meeting and to share what they do with their neighbors. Becky Riley and her garden stuff, also people who do birding that she knows, the dancers, Mike Myers dancing group, oh, Friends of Razor Park is Becky's thing. Becky also does a thing called Helping Hands. I'm wondering, then let's see, inviting the Indigenous Study Group. There's a woman on Park Avenue who has house concerts. Let's see.
Do you have the network of people that began as the anti-Oakley Meadow co-housing people? But there's an email group that takes in McClure and Oakley that looks out for people and says, hey, we just had a break-in at so-and-so's house. Be aware of this. Or
Okay, yeah, if you can give me that information, I'd be glad to ask them. I was also had River Song on the list. Now, River Song also does things like sing-alongs. I don't know, you might want to think about how they might want to participate. Activities.
We can't invite people to come. We don't have the parking.
Okay.
We aren't.
Okay, but there is, I think it would be appropriate for River Song to just say what your vision and what you're doing. Merry Neighbors.
That's March, right?
What?
That's in March?
Yes.
Okay.
Merry Neighbors, just some random neighbors who support each other. I talked to Kat at the rec center about, there's a group of people who go walking on the river path, on a regular basis. I want to reach out to the schools and ask about PTAs or sports activities. The idea
Susan
is,
has her hand up too, by the way.
I see that. Thank you. So anyway, that's the gist, of how do people connect to each other in the neighborhood, and asking people to just show up and, take very brief, a few minutes about who they are, what it is they do, and invite other people to participate, what benefits they see getting from that activity. Susan.
I just want to let you know, I spoke to the person on Park and they have declined.
Oh, thank you for doing that.
No worries.
Claire, what kind of response have you gotten so far?
I got yes from Charlesy, Friends of Razor Park, and Volunteer Library, and I have to get back to Kat at the rec center.
All right. Well, you got more than a month, so great.
I think that's an awesome idea. I'm gonna ask Jill if there's sort of a regular group that volunteers at the school garden as well.
Well, she promotes it on Saturdays. So I had a number of different gardening things, which I took off the list because I assumed you were doing that. But if there are gardening things that come up, we
Well,
can
I
add them
think it's
on.
fine to overlap on that. Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
There's a group, or Horn Lane of Plenty, that has potlucks on occasion, people who have
Yeah.
large gardens and farms.
Include that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the general idea. It's going to be a push for me to pull together after I get back from Mexico. So if anybody has contacts or ideas, send me emails.
Well, it is exciting that we're actually planning 2 months ahead. Let's make sure we pick up another one next month, unless someone has an idea right now for the end of the meeting. Okay. Shall we adjourn 1 minute early?
Hey, John, can I say one thing real quick?
Sure, Dan.
If any, I'm sure we all knew, I don't know how closely we knew, some of us knew, Carlene, and we all obviously know of her diagnosis. She's held on a pretty long time, but it's kind of, I think, kind of coming in for a landing here. And so if you have been kind of postponing sending her a note, or you wanted to stop by, or say something to her, I think that now is probably the best time to do it.
She's
Wow.
not at home. She's at Pete Hospice House.
Yes.
The word I had heard from people that are much tighter involved than I am is that it's really the people who are really tight with her, but cards and letters, prayers are certainly welcome.
Yeah.
Particularly supporting Pat.
Yes. And after, it's going to be a huge thing. I mean, it's really going to be, the help shouldn't stop, or the checking in and that kind of stuff shouldn't stop.
Yeah.
Good
Thanks
deal.
for raising that, Dan.
Yeah, it's a major loss for all of us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay, I declare us adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
John.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Take care, Brenda.